The stakes couldn't be higher this holiday weekend. We are just moments away from President Trump hosting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at Mar-a-Lago. The anticipated sit-down coming just hours after Russia launched a devastating attack on the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv and the surrounding regions. So as Russia gets even more aggressive, what will become of today's push for peace? And with that, we welcome you to Fox News Live. I'm Kevin Cork in Washington. We thank you for joining us. We begin this hour with Madison Scarpino. She is in West Palm Beach, Florida, with the latest on the high-stakes meeting. Madison, we're now hearing a possible call between President Trump and President Putin. Is that your understanding?
Yes, President Trump actually just announced that he did have a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and he calls it good and very productive ahead of this meeting. And there's a lot on the line here as President Trump is hoping to bring this years-long war to an end that he's calling a disaster. So we're expecting to see Zelensky with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago in about 1 hour. They're set to discuss a 20-point peace plan. We have some video here of Zelensky arriving in Miami this morning before heading to Palm Beach. And some major sticking points of this peace plan include U.S. security guarantees, territorial issues, demilitarized zones, and control of a Russian-occupied power plant. Zelensky saying Ukraine is willing to do whatever it takes to stop this war. He says they need to be strong at the negotiating table, and he says in order to be strong, they need the support of Europe and the United States. But this morning, Senator Markwayne Mullin says President Trump and Zelensky have to get on the same page.
It takes two people to agree to a peace deal at this point. It's Putin and Zelensky. However, the person and the only person in the world that can negotiate that is President Trump. And President Trump has made multiple mentions of this publicly and private about that he thought this would be the easiest one to end, and it's turned out to be the hardest.
The upcoming meeting comes as Ukraine's military reports Russia launched more than 500 drones and dozens of missiles in Kyiv yesterday. Explosions booming across the capital, killing at least one person and wounding 27 others. Here's Zelensky in Canada yesterday.
This attack is, again, Russia's answer on our peace efforts, and it's really shows that Putin doesn't want peace. And we want peace.
But a defiant Vladimir Putin is pushing back yesterday, saying, quote, if Kyiv authorities are not willing to end the matter peacefully, we will achieve all the goals we have in this special military operation by military means. So again, Kevin, this meeting on Trump's home turf kicking off in about 1 hour. There will be a camera there, and we're tracking it all. Back to you.
Outstanding as always. Madison Scarpino leading us off. Thank you so much. Keep an eye on things for us down there in Florida. And for more on today's high-stakes meeting, let's bring in Heritage Foundation Senior Advisor and former U.S. Director of Policy Planning Staff, Kyron Skinner. She's also, by the way, an important Fox News contributor. I have been skeptical because I have often felt like no matter what Vladimir Putin says, you should anticipate and expect the opposite, although I've talked to a number of people, Kyron, over the last several days, and there seems to be an unusual amount of optimism heading into this meeting. What's your take?
Well, I've been optimistic all year, but first of all, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, all those good things, and Happy New Year. It's great to be with you. You've been working so hard these last few days. It's great to be on air with you. What I can say is that I tend to be optimistic about this conflict, and I agree with President Trump. He thought it would be the easiest to end. It's turned out to be a war heading into its fourth year, and as Zelensky is moving around the globe trying to work toward peace, attack drones and missiles have been hitting hard on Kyiv and surrounding areas. So the demonstration effect of what Russia is doing and what it stands for is really clear in just the past few days. But I think there's a pathway here, Kevin, that's important. The fact that a new 20-point plan, a revision of the plan that President Trump presented earlier this fall to the Ukrainians is a very good sign, because much of what President Trump put in his original deal is being represented to him by Zelensky after it's been fully vetted with European partners. The original plan by Trump was a no-starter for both Zelensky and for the Europeans. They said, no deal here. But they've worked on the foundation established by Witkoff and Kushner and Trump. And this notion of a free economic zone is very Trump-like, that there will be a space between Russia physically and Ukraine where economic activity can take place, where militaries are out of the way. Whether this actually works and is decided today or in the next few days, I don't think is the real test of whether it will ultimately lead to peace. The fact that we are in this space talking about economic diplomacy, talking about what happens to the largest nuclear plant in Europe, controlled by Russia in Ukrainian territory, to me is massive progress.
It's really remarkable because I think, especially when you consider where we were back in January, you know, the president said, hey, listen, I think this will be the easiest to solve. And I think he has been completely consistent in making a fulsome effort to try to bring the two sides together. The fact that we're at this point is quite remarkable, I guess, in the sense that I think a lot of people felt like no matter what was being said in the conversation, Russia was going to be recalcitrant. Very quickly, I did want to get your take on this sort of demilitarized zone. How might that make the difference, Kyron, between continued war and finally a pathway toward peace?
That's what I think we will hear about today as a result coming out of the meeting between Zelensky and Trump. And, you know, we want to learn more. The issue of the Donbas region, it will be front and center in this conversation because the Russians and the Ukrainians and the Europeans are in a very different place on what should happen in Donbas. The Ukrainians do not want to give up territory that they currently hold, either through more battlefield activity or at the negotiating table. The Russians want it all. I think President Trump is coming to understand that the Russians having an additional amount of territory beyond what they've already snatched would be very devastating for the future of Europe. Also, it's important to note that on this issue of a demilitarized zone, there is consensus among the European partners, along with Ukrainians and many in the Trump administration, that Ukraine must have a peacetime army that's robust, at least 800,000 soldiers. And so there's an agreement coming that we hadn't seen in just a few weeks ago. The Europeans also are prepared to have their own troops on Ukrainian territory. And there's intense discussion about having American intelligence play a more stepped-up role to help protect Ukraine. Back in February, Kevin, when we were talking after President Trump had that ill-fated meeting in the Oval Office with Zelensky, there was no sense that any of this was possible. Look what has happened in 1 year.
Yeah, quite remarkable. And listen, I understand that there are those at the height of the Kremlin who would love to recreate the Soviet Union. There are those who, frankly, look at what happened in Crimea, now the Donbass, and they're just going to keep trying to take little bites. This is the most fulsome, in my opinion, opportunity that they've had now to finally end this bloodshed. Perhaps we'll learn a lot more here in the coming hours. I know you'll be keeping an eye on it for us as well, Kyron Skinner. Always a pleasure, my friend. Happy New Year to you and yours.
You as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.